Good afternoon. My name is Barbara Fuller. As chair of the board, I welcome you to this virtual March 16th, 2021 regular meeting of the Washtenaw County Board of Road Commissioners. Our communications manager, Emily Kaiser, will now describe how our virtual meetings operate, how to access the agenda packet, and how people may participate remotely. Emily?
Thanks, Commissioner. So before we start the meeting, there are a few housekeeping items that I'd like to cover. If you would like to make public comment during the public comment portion of the meeting, we will provide instruction and prompt you to do that at the appropriate time in the agenda, and we'll ask you to virtually raise your hand. This can be done through your computer or touch-tone phone, and I'll provide instructions. The chat feature on the Zoom meeting is available only as technical support for users on their computer or smartphone. If you're experiencing technical issues with audio or video, please submit a comment and I will try to help you troubleshoot. If you're a member of the staff or the board, please contact the IT help desk if you're having a computer issue and they can help you on that end. The audio and video of this meeting is being recorded, and there'll be a link to the video posted to wcroads.org and the Road Commission's YouTube channel in the coming days. Today's meeting agenda is also posted on wcroads.org, and there's a link available in the chat if you're joining us from your computer. Back to you, Commissioner.
Thank you. I'll now call this meeting to order, and if Carrie would please call the roll. Commissioners, you need to identify yourselves as participating from where today, to remember, please.
Okay, Commissioner Barbara Fuller.
Barbara Fuller, participating from Sharon Township, Washtenaw County, Michigan.
Commissioner Rod Green.
Good afternoon, I'm Roderick Green. I'm participating from Superior Township, Washtenaw County.
Commissioner Doug Fuller.
Doug Fuller is present and is participating remotely from Scioto Township.
Commissioner Gloria Llamas. I don't think she's present right now. Commissioner Joanne McCollum.
I'm present and I am participating from Ypsilanti Charter Township.
Cheryl Siddle.
Here.
Matt McDonnell.
Present.
Jim Harmon.
Present.
Dan Ackerman.
I'm here.
Thank you, Carrie. At this time, I ask that we observe a moment of silence out of respect for the countless essential workers who continue to serve, and for those 534,000 Americans, including nearly 16,760 Michiganders who've perished because of the COVID-19 virus. To put the number into perspective, that number of people who have died in Michigan from the COVID-19 virus, I did a little research, and that number of Michiganders having perished would be equal to the total population combined of the following 6 Washtenaw County townships, those being Sharon, Manchester, Bridgewater, Freedom, Saline, and Lodi. So that number represents everybody living in those 6 townships in Washtenaw County. If we take a moment to reflect on those people we have lost and those who continue to serve selflessly. Thank you. We now move to approval of the agenda. May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the agenda for the March 16th Washtenaw County Board meeting.
I support.
Thank you. Is there discussion? Hearing none. Again, because this meeting is being held virtually, all votes need to be roll call votes. Carrie, if you would please call the roll.
Okay, Commissioner Doug Fuller.
Doug Fuller votes aye.
Commissioner Rod Green.
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Llamas. Commissioner Joanne McCollum.
Yes.
And Commissioner Barb Fuller.
Yes. The next item on the agenda is acceptance of the meeting minutes from March 2nd, 2021. May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the minutes as presented for the March 2nd, 2021 meeting.
And I support.
Thank you. Is there discussion, corrections, deletions, any changes? Hearing none. Carrie, if you would call the roll, please.
Mr. Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Doug Fuller,
Votes yes.
Commissioner Joanne McCollum,
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Llamas, and Commissioner Barb Fuller.
Yes. Next on the agenda is public comment. This is the time set aside on the agenda to receive comments from the public. This is not intended to be a period for dialogue. Each person will be allotted 3 minutes to address the board. Emily, do we have anyone? Oh, well, did you want to describe how they would do that, please, real quick? Thanks.
Absolutely. Yep, I'll give the instructions. So if you'd like to make public comment, you can virtually raise your hand now. If you're viewing the meeting from your computer, you want to first make sure that you click join audio, and then you can raise your hand by clicking the participants button at the bottom of your screen, and then the raise hand button at the bottom right of your screen. If you dialed into the meeting from your touch-tone phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. I will unmute participants with raised hands one at a time, and I will announce your username or the last 4 digits of your phone number when it's your turn to speak. Please state your name and address before you're beginning your comments. Okay, is there anybody that would like to make comment? At this time, Commissioner, I don't see anybody with a raised hand.
All right. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda are written communications. They would appear in pages 13 through 14 of the packet. Is there anything there that people wanted to draw our attention to or comment about? Okay. With no public comment, we will move on to new business. May I have a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda as presented, items 1 through 7?
Chair, I have an issue with the consent agenda. We had discussion. I would move that we approve it with the removal of item number 7 because I have objections that I want to be able to discuss. You and I had conversations and you were going to remove it from this agenda. So unless we're going to debate that at this point, I ask that it be removed from the consent agenda.
Is that a motion, Commissioner?
That's a motion that we remove item 7 from the consent agenda.
Approving items 1 through 6, removing item 7 is your motion?
Yes, it is.
Is there a second for that motion? Hearing none, for lack of a second, the motion dies. May I have a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda as presented, items 1 through 7?
Yes, you may. I'd be happy to move the consent agenda items 1 through 7 as presented.
Is there a second?
Support.
Thank you. Further discussion.
The discussion with the procurement policy and the problem that I have with it, it has been done very well, and this is not a criticism on the director. What I wanted specifically on it for it to be specific about construction and items. The issue was we were supposed to discuss a contractor's responsibility language so that it could speak to exactly what needed. It muddied the waters a little bit about the responsible contractor language does not have to include buying bolts and nuts and tires and gas. It was specifically for construction, and this muddies the water on that along with the procurement policy. And the procurement procedure itself left open room for where contractors were not held accountable at certain dollar levels, and every contractor should be responsible at certain dollar levels. So that is my issue with the procurement policy at this point. So I, again, object to the procurement policy.
Are there other comments or discussion?
I would call the question.
Is there a second to calling the question? Hearing none, but hearing no further discussion, Carrie, if you would please call the roll.
Commissioner Doug Fuller,
Votes aye.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Llamas,
No.
Commissioner Joanne McCollum,
Yes.
and Commissioner Barb Fuller.
Yes. Next on the agenda are the reports. I believe both County Commission liaison individuals are here today. We have the chair of the board, Commissioner Sue Schenk, and Commissioner Caroline Sanders. Either of you wish to share anything with us at this time? Sue's not in her head. There she goes.
Yep, Commissioner Schenk, you should be able to go first.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to let you know that I anticipate that tomorrow night the Board of Commissioners will be supporting my request to continue the state or to declare a state of emergency in Washtenaw County for the purpose of being able to continue to meet remotely.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anything else? No.
No.
Commissioner Sanders.
I don't have anything to add other than I'm going to support my chair to continue, because there's a lot to consider. And so we just want to make sure that people still have full access, and they wouldn't necessarily, if we go back to in person, because we'll be limited to the number of people that can be in a space. And so as a way of trying to make sure that we're not excluding anyone, that they still have full access as best that we can offer by phone or virtually. I think it's an excellent idea, and I'm glad somebody else came up with it, because I was secretly thinking it to myself.
Somebody heard you.
Yes. I do just want to add, just for your own acknowledgement, that I appreciate the communications that you send out. Not only that I'm receiving as a commissioner, but that you're making sure that the residents are aware of the projects that you're working on. I think that I'm not throwing any other departments under the bus, but the level of communication that I get from the road commission is something different, I think, than I've received. And I appreciate it. I think it's important, and it speaks to the organizational excellence and to the board excellence. So I don't want to give you the big head. I'm just saying you're doing a good job.
Well, my head will stay exactly the size it is, and I will throw all those kudos to staff, because they worked very hard to make sure everybody knows what we're thinking about doing, what we're engaging in, and when. And we've worked very hard over the past several years to improve our communications, and I think we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just because students are getting other jobs, they're leaving.
I'm hearing background noise. Is that someone? Maybe that was Emily.
I think that was in Commissioner Sanders' office. I think we're good now.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. Road Commissioner reports. Let's start with Commissioner Doug Fuller this time.
Doug Fuller has none.
Thank you. Commissioner Green.
Rod Green has none.
Thank you. Commissioner Llamas.
None.
And Commissioner McCollum.
Yes, I do have a report. I attended the Washtenaw County Parks and Rec meeting March 9th. And my report is about the Michigan Wetlands Board and the Washtenaw County Road Commission have identified a need to establish a wetland mitigation bank within Washtenaw County. They hired ASTI Environmental from Brighton to conduct a search for suitable locations using computer analysis. The preferred criteria for a suitable, they have criteria for suitable sites. There's agricultural land that likely used to be wetland prior to cultivation. It has to be 10 or more acres of wetland could likely be created, located within the Huron River watershed and within ecoregion volume 1-2 as defined by the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. Wetland mitigation will be required by EGLE to complete the B2B Trail project, either by purchasing credits in a private wetland mitigation bank, which can cost $100,000 or more per acre credit, or through other means. Mitigation credits are usually purchased at credit to construction impact ratio of 2 or 3 to 1, 2 to 1 or 3 to 1 as determined by EGLE. Fortunately, the Washtenaw County Road Commission and the Washtenaw County Parks and Rec have a history of successful partnership on projects such as the B2B Trail, and the Washtenaw County Road Commission has agreed to allow the Washtenaw County Parks and Rec to use a small portion of a credit in a wetland bank in Perry, Michigan for our upcoming TAP funded project. Total impact approximately 0.22 acres over 1.8 miles of new trail. The Washtenaw County Road Commission has indicated that this is intended to be a short-term solution to keep the B2B Trail segment and grant funding on track, since their bank is intended for road projects. And that's what I like to report from the Washtenaw County Parks and Rec meeting. Thank you.
You're welcome. By any chance, did you provide that to the secretary so that she
yes, definitely
has your comments accurate? And I want to thank you. Back on March 9th, I believe it was, that you shared a memo from the Director of Parks and Recreation, Coy Vaughn, regarding the Kosh Preserve wetland project. And in that, much of what you just remarked on is described. So I would refer the commissioners back to that Commissioner McCollum shared with us earlier this month.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for that report. I wish to report a couple of things. On March 3rd, I attended the Southwest Washtenaw Council of Governments meeting. Those are still being held virtually. And I have submitted this to the secretary, so it will be included in the minutes. We had a visitation by Lieutenant Al Hunt from the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Office. He is the individual now assigned to cover the territory in the county west of US 23, a considerable landmass for the lieutenant to be overseeing. The Manchester Village reported that it's planning for $250,000 in road improvements this coming construction season. And the day after that meeting, there was a convening of the State Boundary Commission regarding Manchester Village's application to become a city. And at this time, I don't know what the decision of the Boundary Commission was. I'm not real familiar with the process, but the village continues to pursue cityhood. Manchester Township, interestingly, reported that there are plans for a 140-acre solar farm at Sharon Hollow and Herman Roads. Also, there's a Hidden Lake RV park, which is going to start moving dirt this spring, so right here shortly. And Parks and Recreation have started clearing the old railroad bed that comes to us from Watkins Lake State Park towards the village. They're doing some brush clearing and some mowing there. People are already using it for long walks and enjoyment that way. The final leg of that route from where that terminates into the village has not yet been fully determined. There are conversations ongoing, and I believe that we're a part of those discussions and explorations in the event that it involves road right away. In Sharon Township, my township, Stone Co. is in the phase of demonstrating that there is a need for them to do gravel extraction at the property that they recently purchased. It's over 400 acres right on Pleasant Lake Road, just due west of M52. There are strong objections by residents of the township about that operation, but they have purchased the property and do own it. A new winery and event barn is approved in Sharon Township on M52, just north of the village. They purchased a fair amount of acreage there, and they'll be developing that in the months and probably a couple of years ahead. And there's also a cemetery expansion at Township Hall because there are people who are requesting it. They like what Lodi has, and they'd like a little more room in the cemetery in Sharon Township. That next meeting will be June 2nd at 7 p.m. This group meets more on a quarterly basis than a monthly basis. And at this point, it will be determined then whether it's virtual or in person, in a parking lot, whatever. Last night, I participated in a webinar conducted by SEMCOG, inviting U.S. Senator Gary Peters to give us an update on the American Rescue Plan Act and what it portends pretty much in terms of dollars for Michigan and for Washtenaw County. There are going to be significant sums of money coming to Michigan for this economic boost that's being proposed and implemented by the federal government. Of interest, particularly to the Road Commission, I believe there's an infrastructure bill that's in the works. And in that bill, the Senator Peters said there are significant dollars specifically for the Sioux Locks. Commissioner Doug Fuller, I thought of you, for the Sioux Locks, as well as roads and bridges. So this may have an impact on discussions with respect to our annual meetings with the townships. I don't have specifics on dollar amounts. Those are still being shared and finalized, as well as the terms of distribution, which I understand the Department of Treasury writes. So they've approved the American Rescue Plan Act, major dollars coming from that. But then in addition, there is an infrastructure bill that's even bigger that's in the works. Interestingly, Senator Peters is now chair of the Senate Homeland Security Committee. He was the ranking Democrat, I believe, in the prior session, and now he is the chair. And that is the extent of my report. Sorry, Carrie, the Gary Peters part came late last night, so I don't have that in writing.
I'll get it, that's fine.
Okay, you're pretty good at synthesizing these things. From there, I will ask the managing director to take over on reports for herself and her staff.
All right, thank you. And I can certainly help Carrie. I sat in on the same thing with Senator Peters last night as well. So I heard very much the same information, and we're excited to see, as usual, the devil's in the details, but we're excited to see how that pans out for our communities and for the Road Commission specifically, whether there'll be additional funds available through that.
Sorry to interrupt, but Commissioner Fuller had his hand on.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Yamas. Commissioner Doug Fuller.
Doug only wanted to comment that I commend Parks for getting right after the B2B trail. As it happens, they're doing a piece along Huron River Drive, which if I leave the house, I have to drive by. And their construction manager from Parks is doing his usual bang up job of getting that in motion already. So I just wanted to give free kudos to the Parks and Rec.
Thank you. Okay, Cheryl.
All right. A couple other things on the COVID front. A couple of different items on that one. The first one is that we were extremely pleased. We continue to work with the Washtenaw County Health Department, and at the last minute on Friday, Jim's been in very close contact working with the EOC and the Homeland Security Task Force over there and his contacts. And since we are still essential workers and the Group 1B, Group C, They had a few openings at the end of the day on Friday, and so Jim was able to secure a handful of spots for road commission staff to be able to head over there. Like others, they are also prioritizing based on age, so we attempted to send over as many as we could very quickly, had to scramble, had less than 30 minutes to get that list over there, but we were very proud of the fact that we were able to do that. And to get 15 people from the road commission vaccinated on Friday. And again, certainly more than happy wherever there may be openings or opportunities to send over additional staff in the future. So we very much appreciate the ability to work with the health department on that part of it. And again, very, very, very appreciative. Also on the COVID front, we currently are operating under the MIOSHA rule, which requires those who have the ability to work remote to continue to work remote. Nicole Peterson actually will be jumping off here shortly. There is a meeting this afternoon to discuss, or for her to at least sit in and observe the work group that has been formed by the state on that particular topic. We, like many others, are very interested in bringing as many staff as we can safely back into the building. And so we'd like to see what direction we get from the state on that particular front as we look at potentially moving forward with our operations, specifically with respect to those that are working remotely at this time. That also feeds into the board meetings. And so thank you, Commissioner Schenk, for sharing that the county may be taking action. That certainly does help. As the current Open Meetings Act exists, the ability to hold entirely virtual meetings does expire at the end of March. There is a Senate bill that is currently been proposed, Senate Bill 207, to extend that ability to hold virtual meetings through June 30th. But I have also had the ability to speak with the county administrator so that we are very much aware of what is taking place at the local level. And certainly if the county does declare a state of emergency, then we are able to operate under that as well and could continue to hold virtual meetings in the manner that we have been for as long as the county declares that state of emergency to be in effect. So we will keep the board posted on that. In the meantime, should none of those actions take place, staff is also prepared to move to a hybrid meeting on April 6th, which would be our next board meeting. So please stay tuned. I think we're fortunate to have 3 weeks in this particular case between this particular board meeting and the April 6th board meeting. So if we need to pivot, as we have so often been doing over the last year, into that hybrid status, we are prepared to do so. And we will certainly reach out to the board ahead of time so that we can educate everybody on what we need to do next in order to accomplish a hybrid meeting. But we are optimistic and hopeful that we can stay virtual as long as possible. While there's encouraging news out there, especially with respect to vaccination, I don't know that any of us are comfortable moving forward in a different manner quite yet. Just trying to see what else I had here. We already talked about the Senator Peters thing that we've been closely monitoring, the American Rescue Plan, and to see exactly what impact that'll have on the Road Commission. Again, once there's a lot of information that's flying out there quite fast, and we will be trying to determine what exactly that means to both the local communities that we work with and to the Road Commission specifically. So in addition to that, we have quite a few different reports that are included in the board packet. In addition to the traditional staff report, we also have a recruiting report, communications report, a summary of the service requests that we provided to the county board, and then our MTF receipts. Do you have any questions for me before I hand it over to the directors? All right. With that, I'd be happy to hand it over to Jim Harmon, and he can bring us up to speed on the operations department.
Thank you, Cheryl. Draw to the board's attention the operations staff report for the last period starting on pages 37 through 41. Happy to answer any questions that the board may have. I simply state that staff has remained very productive this time of year, a little bit of winter, non-winter. holding the road system together. Very proud of the efforts. Equipment is being well maintained and repaired by our shop. Stockroom sourcing material and keeping us well supplied. Buildings and grounds taking good care of our facilities. And on top of all that, preparing for a very large, robust 2021 construction program. The one thing that I wanted to inform the board of is that we have engaged all 20 townships. We have provided road proposals for their consideration. We've been engaged with them in some cases for several months in preparation for delivering those proposals. Actually had quite a bit of email conversation with representatives from Saline Township as an example this morning. And it appears we're getting very close to finalizing an agreement with them. Delighted to report. Had similar conversations in the last few days with representatives from Dexter Township, Webster Township, Pittsfield Township, and even Ypsilanti Township. In total, staff has developed approximately $22 million in proposed improvements. Much of that is refreshing of prior concerns and requests. Historically, the townships invest around $4 to $6 million annually. So we're excited to partner. We're excited to have those conversations and advance those agreements and hopefully bring them to you for your consideration and approval within the next 2 months. So stay tuned. We certainly will be sharing additional information as we go forward. Happy to answer any questions you have of me.
Jim, nobody's crystal ball is totally fog-free at this point, but with the infusion of federal dollars that are coming, I would be grateful if you and the managing director and everybody else could keep us apprised of what you anticipate the impact being financially, and how many years can it be spread over, right? I mean, if somebody dumps $1 billion on us tomorrow, that's great. But if they say we have to spend it by the end of the year, it would be a bit of a challenge. So how can the board be supportive of making best use of these dollars? And if there's anything we can do to help communicate with the townships on that point, let us know. I am often reluctant to get in the middle of that because you know things I don't know. But I think it's going to be an incredible opportunity, especially when they talk about bridge money. And I trust that all of you have a long list of what you do with it. But let us know, and let us know how we can be helpful. And I'm sure our county commissioners are equally interested in what that impact will be.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are excited to learn more about this. We are up to challenges. We are well positioned to advance projects. Some things take a little longer than others, but delighted to reply that our staff are expert in road and bridge work and are ready, willing, and able to advance any funding that might come our way. So I look forward to learning more about this as well. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and Commissioner Fuller, we agree. We are all up to the challenge, whatever that might be. To be done this year would be, I think, a little bit difficult. And initial indications are, at least the date that I had heard, was the end of fiscal year 2024. If indeed that ends up being the case, that's a lot more palatable, I think, for most of us to be able to give some actual good thinking to what are appropriate projects, what are the needs that are out there, and then to be able to execute them in a manner that makes sense. But again, we will definitely be paying close attention. So any additional information that we have, we can share not only with this board, but with our community partners as well.
One of my concerns would be the requirement that local road work must be met by 50% from sources other than the road commission. So to have our townships prepared for what that might mean and what they might need to do to take advantage of this infusion, or if there are rules that get written about how this money is distributed that might offer a moratorium on that particular provision at the state level, might be helpful. I just don't want us to miss, I don't want to leave any money on the table, and to the extent that we can be ready at whatever we can do to make that work, please let us know.
Absolutely. I'd like to think that we are very good at spending money. So speaking of spending money,
you've demonstrated that in the past, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of spending money, Matt, it's not coincidental that I'll call on you next, since you've been doing a good job of it as late too.
Yes, certainly we've been preparing for this construction season, securing bids through MDOT and also local advertisement. We've got a couple of things underway even. I will caution that we continue to have seasonal weight restrictions in effect, working with Jim and our staff on observations of how the roads are holding up. But at this time, seasonal weight restrictions are imposed, and we'll continue to monitor the situation and want to protect our infrastructure. That's the reason the laws were written, and we have a fragile system that has been underinvested for many years. So we've got to protect our assets, and ultimately, once things have dried out and pavements are not frost-free and also well drained and not saturated, that's where we typically will lift those restrictions. So they typically take several weeks to get to that point. We're not there yet, but we will let you know and certainly advise the public when we are. Everyone asked the question, so I'm sure you're getting asked as well. They're still imposed. Check our website is the answer you should all give, because that'll be the first place where we announce the suspension of seasonal weight restrictions. With some of our projects, we were able to get underway for Denison Bridge. So the crews got their equipment on site before the imposition of seasonal weight restrictions, and they are underway in removing that existing bridge and doing what they can with the time that we have now. So that project is underway. We did get some favorable bid results I shared with you last week or so for paving work, and so hopefully those good numbers will continue to roll in as we have several items still set to bid through the MDOT process. And also we have advertised the US 12 and M17 project. That is a local advertisement. If you recall, we are in agreement with MDOT and Ypsilanti Township, and we'll be administering that project on their behalf. It's being advertised with bids due April 9th. So that project estimated cost estimate right now is at about $5.4 million. And obviously there's other things included like street lighting that are outside the contract. But we're anxious to see the results of that and work through all the things we need to with maintenance agreements, MDOT permitting before we move on to contract award. So that should come to you late April, early May. Also, as we were talking with the border to border, I wanted to let you know that project is still working on getting all its permits. The county parks did go ahead and let a contract to remove the trees to adhere to our environmental restrictions for threatened and endangered species. So the tree contract is underway, but we are still awaiting an Amtrak permit and an Eagle permit for us to submit final bid documents to MDOT to get into the bid advertisement. So we're several months out yet for that border-to-border contract that will be building a non-motorized path between Zeeb Road and Delhi Metro Park along Huron River Drive. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone had regarding our projects that we're working to get to construction on.
I have a question, Matt, about the Wagner Road roundabout project over there and the bridge closure that is it Dexter Ann Arbor Road closed?
Miller Road. So Miller Road is currently closed. The roundabout project is complete. That portion of the project, the roundabout at Miller and Wagner, it's open to traffic. The west of the intersection is the bridge, and the bridge the paving work for the bridge did not get complete. Once seasonal weight restrictions have been suspended, the contractor will then mobilize and then finish the work out there. And then paving plants need to fire back up, which typically happens in May. And after we get the road repaved, and then we are scheduled also to pulverize and resurface between the bridge and the roundabout. Just again, that's another carryover. All that work is hopefully going to take place early this spring.
Thank you.
You bet.
And nice job to Emily responding about the bats. Commissioner Green.
Matt, did you mention anything about the Geddes Road bridge replacement? Or whether you did or not?
Yeah, the contract that I was referring to for Denison Bridge, it's also included. So we did our own version of bridge bundling this year. We let a contract through MDOT with Geddes, Denison, Bridge Road, bridge over the dam in Ypsilanti Township, and then Mass Road just north of the city of Dexter. All those bridges are in one contract. The only bridge that they're working on currently is Denison Road Bridge. We're getting schedules for all the other work, and you'll see if you subscribe to the project page, which I'm sure Emily has already got the commissioners listed on. You'll get project updates for when those time frames will going to happen. So,
thank you.
No work thus far.
Okay.
Any other questions for Matt?
I will
Cheryl,
also say just one last thing, that we're certainly ready and willing to work on any money that comes our way. We will be very closely monitoring the situation, working with our partners with Watts and SEMCOG. They are very, very much well experienced on many initiatives over the years, on federal initiatives that where we can invest in our community, we will with the funds, and we'll see what trickles down to the local level. I have a feeling that MDOT and cities will see large investments, and I'm very hopeful that our local road commissions will also not be forgotten.
Well, there are allocations going to townships. I mean, that much has already been announced. So it's a question of what are they going to do with that money? So I have a couple of ideas.
Right. Lots of strings attached.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Cheryl.
All right. Last but not least, since I think just about every conversation has involved money, we'll turn it over to Dan Ackerman, finance and IT, not to forget about our IT part either.
You know, talking about the spending money, I think of an old timer in the operations department who always said to me, tell me how much money we have to spend and we will spend it. If it's $3 million, if it's $30 million, we will spend it. And I think we as an organization do a good job of just that. So, but I just was kind of thinking about those conversations I used to have with one of our former employees. I I'd like to start with the Michigan Transportation Funds, which is on the last page of your packet. And you'll notice in January of 2021 compared to 2020, we're a little under 1% higher, which is actually below our budget. But if you recall, just looking at 2020 and all the fluctuations, we don't want to panic about just 1 month of information. So certainly staff will continue to monitor it, but we usually see fluctuations in that. And I did want to share that MDOT provided some updated projections for Michigan Transportation Funds. They're very similar to the previous projections, and they also are in line with where our budget is. So I still feel pretty comfortable with where we are. You know, certainly if this trend continues, then we can adjust either in the first or second quarter. But as of now, I feel pretty comfortable with regards to our MTF and where that's at. As far as other things, Cheryl and I met with our auditors and we had a draft meeting for our 2020 financials. That went well, and I anticipate the final reports will be available soon. Of course, we'll be covering that with the board in our second meeting in April. And you know, certainly we have some good news to share, and I've shared a little bit as far as you know, coming back from the deficit spending that we were projecting in 2020. And we'll be sharing all that with the board, and again, that second board meeting in April. And also we will have the first quarter 2021 budget review, so very timely as well. So that'll be a real finance heavy board meeting, but a lot of good information to cover with that regard. Also wanted to share that the GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, per GASB, every 2 years, we have to have an actuary for our OPEB, our other post-employment benefits. And so we are due for that for fiscal year end, December 31st, 2020. We've already started the wheels in motion for that. And per GASB, it is a requirement to have this report to see where our numbers at. And the OPEB is primarily our retiree health insurance. We're required to have an actuary review and see where our funding status is. It certainly is not a funding requirement, but of course, our agency for several years now has tried to fund that as best we can. And certainly with the PA 202 from the state of Michigan, we've been able to meet their minimum standards. And it also, by attempting to fund that, that just shows our level of commitment to our retirees as well. So the earlier we can get started on this, the sooner then we can report back to the board. So we're hoping maybe even by the summertime, we'll have the report to share with all of you. So more to come on that. And then with regards to IT, just want to mention that Chris Quinter and I met with NetSmart Plus. They're our new managed service provider, and we were very impressed. They're extremely professional. And as we've shared, and as you know, we've done a lot to stand up our IT infrastructure. We made a lot of investments. Our previous managed service provider, Dominant Systems, has been great and has really aided us. But Chris and I are very optimistic with this new company taking us to a whole other level. Chris has several projects that he's anxious to get started with. And so partnering with them, we're really excited about where all of our IT is going to go in the near future here. And that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Commissioner McCollum.
Yes, I have a comment. I just want to say that the, Dan, is it
NetSmart Plus, yeah.
NetSmart Plus seems to be a reasonable cost for all what they're offering.
Yes.
I thought, when I looked at that, I thought, wow, it's pretty good.
Yes, we were very pleased with the price point as well as all the services that they provide. And, you know, the level of professionalism was my biggest takeaway. They are just so, you know, they've got staff for all of our needs, and, you know, I think a lot of great ideas for us. So we're really looking forward to partnering with them.
Good choice. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, that's it from staff's perspective. Thank you.
Cheryl, I had one last thing I forgot to mention.
Sure, go ahead.
I just want to remind the board that we have our public hearing for our procedures and regulations for permit activities. That public hearing is next Wednesday at 10 a.m. And thank you, Emily, for the reminder.
The secrets behind what are going on behind the scenes here. All right. Now I think we can say staff is done.
Okay. All right. I'd just like to acknowledge 3 people from the public who've been with us through this whole meeting. Craig Swenson, trustee in Lodi Township, Michelle Anzaldi, clerk, Pittsfield Township. Mr. Johnson, I'm afraid I don't know your affiliation, but I want to acknowledge that you were here with us today, and thank you for spending time with us in this virtual meeting. The next board meeting is on April 6th. Hi, Michelle. April 6th at 1 o'clock. Chat sessions occur tomorrow. I'll be staffing that chat session. And then on March 24th, it's Commissioner Doug Fuller. So if there's nothing further to come before the board, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please, Carrie.
Okay, Commissioner Doug Fuller,
Aye.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Llamas,
Aye.
Commissioner Joanne McCollum,
Yes.
and Commissioner Barb Fuller.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.